Good morning. It is good to see everybody here this morning. I was talking with Adele as we were getting started. She saw me and said, "Hey, I was looking forward to seeing Ray Ellis." So was I. But in any event, you've got the substitute of the substitute. So this is kind of the pecking order. And in order to be seen as wise and prudent, I've always heard brevity is a sign of that. So I'm going to be brief and to the point. And we just may have a 15-minute sermon, and I'm going to let you go with that. I wanted to look at the book of Micah. Mike did a nice study there on Jonah that I really enjoyed. But the book of Micah is kind of interesting. Just a few things I want to hit on those texts. One of the last 12 books of the Old Testament are known as the minor prophets. And they're called the minor prophets not because their subject matter is less important, but just because of the size of the book. And what's really neat about those is that they deal with some of the very same issues that Isaiah and Jeremiah and some of the others do, but they can be very specific to a given concern. And so we're going to look at Micah. And Micah was from Judah, the southern kingdom. Now, again, just kind of setting the context, you have the nation of Israel that went into the promised land, and then you had the 12 tribes that got up their various territories, and then they established King Saul and had King David and King Solomon. And then after that, we had a little chaos. And Jeroboam, Rehoboam kind of went in different directions, and they divided the kingdom. And so you had 10 tribes. The northern tribes were known as Israel, and the 2 southern tribes were known as Judah. Israel had a lot of issues, but Judah was not without its problems also. And so throughout time, God kept sending them prophets to give them guidance, to direct them, to give them a change. And this kind of rebellion continued on for many years, basically about 500 years. They were misbehaving, and God was still trying to bring them around. And so Micah is dealing with some of these issues. Two of the issues that God identifies in the book of Micah that I want to talk about, if you kind of summarize things, 2 big concerns. One, the leaders and the prophets had become corrupt. They were gaining great wealth basically through theft, through dishonesty and greed. That is to say, a lot of unjust economic practices that they were kind of building into their society to reward the rich and punish the poor. Unfortunately, we don't have to deal with anything like that now, right? I mean, that's nothing we have to face. Well, it's very relevant. It's very much the nature of people. And so this is what was happening in the Jewish community at this time. The other was kind of along the same line. Again, the leaders and the prophets, they were running business dealings and the courts basically through a bribery system. They would show great partiality if you had the funds to reward the judges. The prophets and priests would give you praise and honor if you could afford it. That is to say, again, ultimately, the poor were being abused and their land was being taken from them. And this was a direct violation from the laws that God had established for his people. And so because of these ongoing concerns, God basically said, enough. It's time for you guys to repent, and I need to get your attention. And so I'm going to be sending the Assyrians, and the Babylonians, and they're going to wipe you out and carry you off into captivity. Again, this is not good news for anybody. But in the same breath, in the same text, God also talks about there will be, though, a restoration. There will be a redemption. There will be a rebuilding of Jerusalem. And it will become a place where all nations will come together and worship and know God. And peace will cover the world. And so throughout the book of Micah, we have this theme of judgment, hope. Judgment, hope. And it's something that's very appropriate, again, for us today. Let me look at a text here, just a few verses in Micah chapter 4, verses 2 through 5. Just read that for you here. Many nations will come and say, "Come, let us go up to the mountain of the Lord, to the house of the God of Jacob. He will teach us his ways, so that we may walk in his paths. The law will go out from Zion, the word to the Lord from Jerusalem. He will judge between many peoples, and he will settle disputes for the strong nations far and wide. They will beat their swords into plowshares, and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation will not take up sword against nation, nor will they train for war anymore. Every man will sit under his own vine and under his own fig tree, and no one will make them afraid. For the Lord Almighty has spoken. All the nations may walk in the name of their gods. We will walk in the name of the Lord, our God, forever and ever." And so you kind of see this same kind of thing that I was talking about, this gathering, this time of hope. The first 3 chapters basically dealt with the issues that God had against them, but he's saying there's going to be a time whenever you will be redeemed, you will be brought back. And so we continue with that theme that's very relevant to judgment and hope. And I think of this time in our present situation with world struggles, political upheavals, COVID-19, everything that's going on. We're not able to get out. We're not always able to attend church. We're not able to see our family and loved ones. And it can kind of be discouraging and a little bit confusing about what should we be doing? How should we behave? What is best? And it kind of even comes down to, God, what do you want from us? What should we do? Kind of that age-old question. And so often we kind of get caught up in a lot of different things about what does God want us to do. Well, I just love how Micah in chapter 6, it should be a familiar text to you. We'll look, and this will be anchored for the rest of the time. Micah 6, verses 6 through 8. It's kind of interesting. It says, "What shall I come before the Lord?" With what shall I come before the Lord and bow down before the exalted God? Shall I come before him with burnt offerings, with calves a year old? Will the Lord be pleased with thousands of rams, with 10,000 rivers of oil? Shall I offer my firstborn for my transgression, the fruit of my body for the sin of my soul? He has showed you, O man, what is good. And what does the Lord require of you? To act justly, and to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God. I just think that's just a beautiful text. It puts so many things in perspective. And you think about the author here, it's kind of a rhetorical question. What can I do for God? What does he want? Does he want sacrifices? Well, God really doesn't want sacrifices. Would you be pleased with thousands of rams? And again, a lot of the whole burnt offerings, sacrifices, those have to do with a sin offering or a guilt offering, something like that. Or would you be pleased with rivers of oil? This is more of a sacrifice of thanksgiving, one of appreciation, of saying, God, I'm so grateful to you. Would that satisfy? Would that please you? Or perhaps I should give my firstborn as a sacrifice for my sin. Well, God's never asked anybody that. Well, I guess he asked Abraham, but that was a little different thing, okay? God doesn't want that. What does God want from us? He said, listen, I've showed you what's good. I've showed you what you need to do. And so, again, it's kind of just a beautiful text where it says, do what God has done. How has God loved you? What has God done? Do those same kind of things. Be like that. And what is that? Act justly, love mercy, and walk humbly with your God. So let's unpack those just a little bit. To act justly. That's kind of intuitive, but it's, what do we really mean by that? Well, to do what is fair and right, to be honest. Again, one of the struggles they were having at the time is people were cheating each other. The business merchants were changing the scales up, so people were having to pay more and get less. They were being greedy. They were taking advantage of people. And so be honest. Use good scales. Don't cheat anybody. Give correct change. Pay your taxes. Wait your turn. Generally speaking, treat everyone the same, not giving any special privilege to the rich or the popular. Is that anything we struggle with today? You think about this, again, the nature of people. You can kind of see trends developing where they want to take advantage of the stranger, but they want to treat their friends special, give them special consideration. Or those that are positions of power or influence say, hey, if I treat this guy nice, maybe he'll take care of me. And so there was a lot of that going on. So to be just, to be honest and fair, trustworthy. Now, with that, we say treat everyone the same, but that's not always true either. And it was kind of interesting. Lots of scripture to look at, but if you look at I found a listen called the Quartet of Vulnerability. I thought that was kind of interesting. But in the Old Testament, the widow, the orphan, the immigrant, and the poor were to be given special consideration. These groups of people were disproportionately disadvantaged. They were vulnerable. They were taken advantage of. They had little social power or influence. And these were folks that were just trying to get by. And over again, we see in the law and the wisdom writings that they should afford special protection, special treatment, special consideration to take care of their inherent disadvantages. There's several texts dealing with that, and I think you'll notice that. And this is not an exhaustive thing, but I'll just read a few. If you're interested in a study, just Google that or get yourself a good concordance. It's amazing the things that you'll start running into. But in Deuteronomy 27, it says, "Cursed be anyone who perverts justice due to the sojourner, the fatherless, and the widow." And all the people will say amen. In Proverbs 31, he says, "Open your mouth for the mute, for the rights of all who are destitute. Open your mouth, judge righteously, defend the rights of the poor and the needy. And again, open your mouth for the mute. Not that he's literally talking about mute, but somebody who doesn't have a voice, somebody who doesn't have influence, somebody who is downtrodden. If you're in a position, stand up, protect them, look out for them, take care of them. Love one another. Zechariah 7, do not oppress the widow, the fatherless, the sojourner, or the poor, and let none of you devise evil against another in your heart. And so justice as a whole was a concern that God had throughout the Old Testament. Even in Deuteronomy, he's talking about basically reminding the children of Israel, you were sojourners. You were strangers in the land. How were you treated? Treat others in the same manner. Anyway, so that's a key point. So to act justly, to be fair and right with all of our friends and neighbors and all of our business dealings. The second point, to love mercy. Now, mercy and grace are really a lot alike. They're similar, but they're not the same thing. There is a difference. Mercy is pretty much the act of withholding a deserved punishment. You're guilty of something, I'm in a position to punish you for it, and I don't. That's mercy. Okay? While grace is the act of giving a blessing just outright. Okay? So, in God's mercy, he does not give us the punishment we deserve. While in his grace, he gives us a gift we do not deserve. So mercy is probably a little closer tied to forgiveness. But it says to love mercy. And again, you kind of break down those words too. This love is not just love the mercy shown to you, which I think most of us do. I mean, if you've ever been guilty of anything, and I have, mercy's been extended to me. I love that. But do I also love the mercy that's extended to you? Do I also love the mercy that one person extends to another person? Do I love the opportunity to extend mercy? And all those are really important. And I think that's kind of what the text is talking about. Because by doing that, we start to become and look a little bit more like God, don't we? In our nature, in the very spirit of God, to have the spirit of forgiveness, the spirit of mercy. And so our lives need to be filled with appreciation and mercy towards others. So to love mercy, to love with an everlasting love, to embrace it with an absolute love, to just hang on to it, to let that be a key part of who we are and our makeup. And then the last point is to walk humbly with your God. Now, this is just a beautiful image of an intimate, personal relationship with our Creator. You know, to walk alongside somebody, it's hard to walk alongside of somebody that you're angry with or arguing with or something, but there's generally a oneness, a one accord, a relationship. But it's not so much the action of walking as it is the attitude with which we do it. Our humbleness before God, the manner in which we approach God. You know, I think this is something that a lot of us struggle with, is understanding our place before God. I think too often, a lot of times, and maybe I'm just talking about myself here, I don't know. want to become advisors to God, okay? You know, God, what would you really need here? What would really be good? Lord, if you could just, I think we need to back off and understand our place before God. Understand, too often we want to give God the benefit of our perspective. Not necessarily helpful, okay? God's very tolerant of us, but clearly we need to have a sense of humility. Again, so often I think we figure, how can I get God to fit into my life? Wrong perspective, okay? It's how do we fit in to God's plan? What can we do to better serve His kingdom? What can we better do to serve His concerns? And too often we're just all tied up in our own concerns. So to have that humbleness of mind, that humbleness of heart. So big picture. What does God want from us? What great things can we do for God? Act justly, love mercy, and walk humbly with God. And that's kind of it in a nutshell. And if we think about these things and can apply them to our lives, we become better spouses and better neighbors and better friends and better community members. All of these things fit together in creating a better society for us also. Today, if we can be of service to you, a source of encouragement, pray with you, study with you, or if you feel you're ready to be baptized now, we can assist you with that. If you have a prayer card that you wish to share with a prayer warrior this week, pass it to the center of the aisle, and we'll collect those during this singing of this next song here. And somebody will pray for you every day for that coming week. If there's any way we can be of service, please don't hesitate to let us know. As together we stand and sing, My Hope is Built on Nothing Less.